August and Coati, can you both tell me the first person that you ever recall seeing on stage and being awed by what they were wearing?
On a stage.
The first person that I can recall being on stage and I was awed by what they were wearing was when I went to see this Broadway show, Old Calcutta. One of the main actresses there was wearing an incredible birthday suit, and I really enjoyed that tremendously.
I think the first time I was impressed by attire had to be on the stage, much like Mundi's experience, some theatrical venture. I think it was The King and I. And I was in junior high school.
Great show.
And I remember looking at it and saying, wow, it's fabulous that you can transpose yourself through clothing that way to another place and time. Of course, I got taken by the music and the magic of it all as well. But in the rock and roll world, the first time, obviously, that I was really impressed was when I first saw footage of Cab Calloway in the zoot suit. The 1940s zoot suit with the long jacket and the baggy trousers and the exaggerated fedora, the two-tone shoes, et cetera, et cetera. I was really wowed by that, so much so, of course, that it influenced me greatly in the later stage of my life.
You know, I did enjoy Yul Brynner, The King and I.
It was fabulous, right? The clothing?
There was something about him that really got to me, and it really influenced me. I can't remember now, but there was something.
I think it was his height.
Yes, I guess so.
What happened?
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Could you describe for me, August, the make of the zoot suit? What's it like?
Well, it started out as a rebellious thing that fellows, Chicanos in California and Mexico were wearing to sort of thumb their noses at society because there was a shortage in clothing during the war days, and they were trying to say that they didn't give a damn, so they went out and used more clothing rather than less. And then Harlem picked it up because, of course, all rebellion sort of starts in the bad neighborhoods, so to speak.
Well, the less fortunate neighborhoods. The less fortunate neighborhoods.
I'm sorry for the derogatory term, bad neighborhoods, excuse me, because he came from one.
And I'm still there.
Yes. So I would say that it is an exaggeration of a traditional suit of the 40s in that the shoulders are exaggerated, the jacket is longer, it swallows the human being, and the crotch is much lower, than a normal pants, allowing the mind to flourish. And the two-tone shoes, as I said before, and it's really a hype. It's a peacock approach of look at me. I'm trying to make a statement. Look at me. I'm outrageous, and that's what the whole notion of the zoot suit was in the beginning. Of course, when Cab took it from the Chicano movement, he was using it as a come-all, a catch-all for theatrical purposes. There was no rebellion there, so to speak, other than to say it was a good way to dress, an interesting way to dress, a glamorous way to dress.
What do you think that the wearing of the zoot suit, what do you think that said about Cab's style of music?
I think it said a lot about his music. The zoot suit itself was a way for Cab to express himself, because Cab was an individualist. He was not jumping on bandwagons, so to speak, in his musical adventures. He was trying to say that his music was in that same way, not following the norm. It was free-flowing, it was adventurous, it was daring, and I think that it went hand in hand with the way he dressed.
How, in being so impressed with Cab Calloway and the zoot suit, did that happen very quickly with your own personal style of dressing? Was that the first style of dressing you embraced when you became a performer?
When I became a performer, I was so impressed by the look of Cab Calloway and by the entire look of the 40s. Let me say that it wasn't only Cab Calloway that was wearing zoot suits at this time. It was Xavier Cugat and the whole Cuban movement as well. If you look at some of the early footage of those band leaders, they too were dressed very elegantly, very exaggeratedly. When I first joined a professional band. It was Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band in 1975, where I met my partner, Coati Mundi. And the look of that band was deliberately 40s. And so therefore it was wonderful because you could use these influences, and we all dressed up. There were 5 major members, royalty members. The nucleus of the band were 5. Was comprised of 5 members, and we all dressed 40s, and it was also a lead singer, female lead singer, who dressed like Joan Crawford and Hedy Lamarr and Betty Davis all rolled into one. So it was a marvelous way to ventilate this desire to look like the 40s idols.
Plus, economically, it paid off because at that time, the 40s outfits and things weren't that popular. So we were able to get all the 40s suits for like incredibly cheap. All of a sudden, everybody got influenced by us. Because right now, if you ask any little kid on the street that's wearing baggy pants or any zoot suits, and you ask them, who's your influence, they would say August Darnell, Coati Mundi. So we've become an influence for a lot of musicians. We started the whole movement in England with the 40 suits and everything. We started over here. There's been a lot of imitators of August Darnell and myself, right? We all know who they are, and they all know who they are. All right, let's not mention any names.
Imitation is a wonderful form of flattery, after all.
It is, and I'd love to be flattered. And but there's been a lot of great fashions, not only in the 40s and the 50s. For example, the Big Bopper used to wear with all the teen jackets. And as we left Savannah Band, I personally got influenced by that style. I've always enjoyed like the League of Nations, the United Nations. I always feel like not only people can coexist, not only music can coexist like in our music, but I think also fashions can also coexist, hopefully. Some people don't think so. Like I'm wearing a sweatshirt, sports, and then I got like a 50s high school type jackets, and I got the 40s pants, and then I got sort of a little punkish shoelaces here and socks and all that. And
That's fab.
yeah, I think it is groovy. And I personally feel they all match, despite whatever my friends and family say. So I just think they all coexisted, and God, I don't know what the point I'm trying to make, but
I think the point is a good point. The point is that not only is there a point in saying that the potpourri of music
thanks.
is interesting, but he's saying that the combination of different styles is also a way. And fashion itself, of course, has always been caught up in the belief that everything must be from one world or from one era or from one locale. And what Mundi is just saying is that that's not necessarily the rule. We can borrow from different eras, we can borrow from different styles and put them all together and come up with some interesting
Like the rings
combinations.
in different locales. Like the idea of wearing these rings, I got it from my Italian friends in Bay Ridge. And then the 2 watches, I got it from my active friends that were in the killing fields. If you know, there's a Khmer Rouge that used to steal the watches, and we put one watch in one wrist and one in the other. So there's a scene where you see the guy with 2 watches. So it's not only rock influences, it's just movie influences, it's just life's influences in general. Because musicians get clothes from the real world outside.
Okay. You're cracking people up out there. Do you guys consider yourself, because of your own styles, do you consider yourself to be fashion innovators?
Yes.
August?
When I'm asked if I consider myself to be an innovator, I'm very egotistic. And I would like to say, yes, I do consider myself an innovator. But,
But you are a fashion innovator. Are.
I'd like-
There's nobody dressing like you right now.
Oh, sure.
For real. No, there's some people that might go on stage and have some costume person in some film department making up a suit for them on stage. But you wear your clothes out on the street. You're for real. You are a fashion innovator. And he's very humble. He is egotistical, but he is very humble. But he is a fashion innovator.
Okay, hell, I'm a fashion innovator.
That's what he is. He is a fashion innovator.
I'm
And so am
fascinated.
I. I am a fashion innovator with him.
I was going to say that history always has a way, as Shakespeare once wrote, the truth will out. History has a way of vindicating these things, so it really doesn't matter if I say I'm a fashion innovator or not. There's a way, years from now, children will take out an encyclopedia and they'll look up fashion. and they'll say so-and-so brought about a change of fashion. You know, much like Madonna, for instance. Madonna brought about a new wave of interest because she showed her belly button, something as simple as that. And then there's a whole style of, you know, the midriff, which goes back to the, if you can remember, the Betty Grable era, back in the 30s.
Yeah,
the
that's
midriff.
a beautiful
was
era.
a fabulous era, wasn't it?
I enjoyed it
It
immensely.
was marvelous. And all things move in cycles, as it says in Ecclesiastics. There's nothing new under the sun. Was it Ecclesiastic or Judges?
No, it was ecclesiastical, but it wasn't nothing's new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun and the moon.
I don't remember that part.
That the part was added by Shakespeare's little brother, Thomas.
Thomas Shakespeare.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And as we are saying, these things move in cycles. Just as Cab Calloway in the 40s with the zoot suit, and now we have the Savannah Band in 1976 with the zoot suit, Kid Creole with the zoot suit, all the British bands that came over, Blue Rondo, a la Turk, and a number of others adapted that style of the zoot suit. And so we're moving in cycles. Nothing is new. I don't think anything is new. If you look at the early Elvis Presley footage, he was wearing some great stuff, you know, in the early days.
Sort of futuristic too.
Yeah,
if you
it
look at him.
was almost futuristic. He had the baggy slacks. He had the loafer shoes sometimes. You know, very interesting stuff. And the jackets, very box back.
But if you look at his Las Vegas style,
oh yeah, then he went to a different
Then he went
era.
to Vegas style,
Yeah.
and that's almost if you put a helmet on Elvis Presley, you would think he's a Martian, with the Las Vegas look he had.
Yeah, he had a Vegas thing
Yeah.
too. Yeah, but I think he was forced into that.
Yes.
Probably. Are your street clothes your stage clothes, or is there a difference?
Well,
Sometimes.
let us put it this way.
sometimes.
For the stage, we often, every year we go out, we take the tour out every year to support the album. It's the best way for us to promote ourselves through the tour, since MTV never plays our videos, and other networks don't really like us. We promote ourselves through live shows. So what we do per year, which is kidding, of course, what we do per year is we change the look of the show based upon what our theme is. The tour we're on now, which has been going on for 8 months, is called the Leisure Tour. So everything was modeled after a leisure look, a country club look. So that obviously the things we wore on stage, the swimsuits and they were all based on the 30s, but contemporary as well. These things we wouldn't wear out in the street. But the general look of it is still basically what we're about as individuals, which is to say that the stage show is a mere exaggeration of what we really wear in everyday life.
Sometimes we do wear our actual street clothes on stage.
Closes.
Closes, yeah.
I like that one.
Yes, well, as I said, sometimes we wear our street clothes on stage, and he likes that one because we have no choice due to economics.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a very expensive show.
Yeah, it's a very expensive show. We do maybe 10 costume. Well, I do maybe 6 costume changes. August does 11 to 12 costume changes during the show. And
Yeah, and, you know, we should speak of economics in clothing because this is a reality. When Mundi pointed out before, the glory of the early days was you can go to an antique shop and get this stuff for dirt cheap. When we look at today's rock and roll idols, today's heroes, a lot of times we're looking at exaggerations that are very expensive. Very expensive. And the average kid sitting at home watching that stuff, he, of course, emulates his heroes, his idols, and he looks up and he says, wow, I'd like to look like that. But he can't achieve that look, of course, because he's dirt broke and he can't get it. But there's also a movement, which is very interesting, the beatbox movement, the street movement, where all of a sudden there is a glorification of the street look, which is very easy to identify with for today's children because they just go out and they are it, you know.
well, Madonna sort of got that street
yes,
look.
Yes, I think Madonna sort of, shall I say, commercialized that street look. And it's interesting when you juxtapose the two, the sort of rock and roll hero who's in the glitzy, you know, sometimes often very tacky, you know, the materials that is, and the diamonds and that whole look, the expensive look, as opposed to the street look. You know, I prefer personally, because I am from the street, I prefer the street look, and also I think it gives the child a better grasp on reality of saying, hey, this guy, I look up to him and I like to be like him. I can be him, you know. I think back of the things that influenced me as a child, the early 40s movies, and my heroes, Eddie G. Robinson and John Garfield and Humphrey Bogart. And these cats were always dressed in the box-back suits, and they were always looking good, you know. And I remember as a kid saying, I want to look like that. And I remember going out and trying to get a suit when I was 12 years old and finding it cost $150 and saying, oh, God, what, you know, and being frustrated. You know, it's a tough world, of course. But these are the realities of it, you know. The style and economics is connected there.
Well, it's funny because when you talk about rock fashions, and that it borrows from the street, for example, like a Cyndi Lauper or a Madonna, it comes really from the street. There's been a lot of people for the longest time going to antique clothes and all these secondhand shops getting clothes, and that's where they got their clothes from. But obviously being artists and entertainers, they put their own style and touch to it, and like you said, they exaggerate. Mm-hmm. Then when you go to the concerts, a lot of people are dressing like that, so it's sort of like a circle. They borrow from the people that sort of do that style, exaggerate, put their touch to it, and then the people start looking like Madonna, looking like Cyndi Lauper, looking like August Darnell, looking like Coati Mundi. And it's amazing because when you come to the Kid Creole concerts, there's a lot of people looking just like us. Well, not so much in the United States because nobody cares or loves us here. But over in Europe where we're worshipped, like you'll see somebody over there wearing an incredible suit, a la August Darnell.
Incredible suit.
And you'll see people with their heads shaved, a la Coati Mundi, wearing sweatshirts, sports shirts, also wearing sneakers or maybe shoes and different colorful things here or there. And really, I got these things from them, and then they get a certain style from me.
That's a good point.
Thank you. I hope it makes the final edit.
You guys obviously just are all about a sense of glamour and a sense of style. Number one, can you think of anyone else in music that might be giving their audiences that sense of glamour? And number two, do you think that has maybe some reason that you're maybe a little bit more popular in Europe? And people can understand it better over there.
I truly believe, as a great writer once wrote, that the clothes oft proclaim the man. Which is to say, in the rock and roll world, I feel that a person should look as his heart tells him he should look. And that look should have something to do with the music, should have something to do with the style, with the content of his product, so to speak. What bothers me many times in the rock and roll world is that I see how a package has been put together. And I may see an artist who's very glamorous, but it has nothing to do with the heart and soul of that artist. And I know that some manager, some record company executive packaged that person and put it there. And it's awful. I won't name any.
Go ahead, name one or two.
I won't.
Okay.
Individuals, because these are my brethren, the artists out there. We're all struggling together to get to whatever the rainbow is.
We're struggling more than them.
But the glamour is definitely part and parcel of our thing, because it is the way we were weaned. We were weaned on the glamour, Hollywood's depiction of the street life in the 40s. And this influenced us a great deal. So therefore, it is a part of our integrity. As toward your question as whether who out there today is selling the glamour, there are a lot of people that are very glamorous. Unfortunately, many of my heroes still come from the past, because I'll give you an example. The Beatles, for instance. The Beatles had a look and an image, and it constantly changed as their music grew. And it had so much to do with the heart and soul of their music. When they grew long hair, you could tell that the music got more rebellious, and they were experimenting with drugs and other ridiculous things.
It was their life.
They were evolving. It was their life. And that was what was so great about watching them and growing up with them, because they started out so clean cut. And when they were clean cut, the Rolling Stones were rough looking. And the Rolling Stones, their music was hand in hand with that rough look. But today, unfortunately, you don't find that many artists who look as the music sounds. And it's a desperation. It is a result, of course, of the advent of videos, because everyone's trying to package something today. So oftentimes you might get a producer who says, man, we got to change your look because videos are in now, and you got to look a little better, and you got to look a little slicker. And what they're not realizing is that when they change that person's look, they've changed him. And his music and him and his image are no longer congruous. And this incongruity makes it more so false to the listener and to the audience that you get turned off. An intelligent person gets turned off. Now, of course, there are, people. Some people say the masses are fickle, and the masses can be tricked and cajoled into numerous things. And of course, that's what these advertising people think they're doing when they package these things.
Be nice if they were tricked and cajoled into buying our records.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
Well,
Jesus Christ.
You
Let's do
guys
something about that.
obviously have a look and a style that you're very comfortable with. Who was responsible for the design of Kid Creole and the Coconuts? How did that all come about?
The design of Kid Creole and the Coconuts, I would say, the responsibility of it, and if anyone's to be attributed with the success of that look, it would be three people. It would be primarily Adriana Kagi, who was the Mama Coconut in the whole outfit. We call her Mama Coconut because she was responsible for the three coconuts. And she came up with the look of the coconuts, the blonde hair, the height, the weight, the clothing, everything. She designed it, she set forth, and she went out to do it, and she conquered that. In the other arena is Coati Mundi, but we had been partners for so long that we were thinking alike since 1975 because we were in Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah Band together. And at that time, we were under the aegis of a man by the name of Stoney Browder, who was the band leader. Mm-hmm. And he was a fanatic when it came to the glamour of the Savannah Band. And he wanted us all to walk a certain way, talk a certain way, think a certain way. And he was fanatic in this way, but it rubbed off on us and it made us realize what it took to be a band leader, what it took to get an image across.
Right, it wasn't just the music, it was the concept was just as important as the music. Because when we first got together in Savannah Band and also eventually when we formed Kid Creole and the Coconuts, the music came secondhand. We were more interested in what kind of person, what kind of religion they had, what kind of styles they like, could we get along with them, was the sense of humor there, sense of fashion, were they open? We didn't want like serious professional musicians. We wanted a whole personality because that was going to be very important in the music.
It was much like casting a movie. And the third person, of course, being myself, I had been a product, as I say, of Stoney Browder. So therefore, I was just carrying on the tradition. Kid Creole is, of course, an offshoot of the Savannah Band. And because the Savannah Band is not active, I feel very good. I feel that I have carried on that tradition. There are not many bands today, I can't think of many, that are carrying on the tradition of the big band of the 40s. The Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington tradition, which would be a shame to die because it's a very important tradition. And of course, we're not just carrying on that tradition. Our music is very eclectic. It borrows from, of course, rock and roll, from reggae, from calypso, from R&B, from funk, from all these sources. But it's housed in a very big bandish sort of vehicle.
I mean, we have 13 pieces on stage, which is, people think we're crazy.
We are crazy.
Well, we are crazy, yes, that's true. And poor.
So the style, I would say, would rest on Adriana for what she did amazingly with the girls and her work with the choreography, with Coati Mundi and with myself.
Is it a group decision always, what people are wearing?
Oh, never.
Never?
No. Well, mainly the person that takes final responsibility for everything, being the leader, is August Darnell. We all have obviously our opinions, but if it gets too crazy if too many people decide. Sometimes you just need one person to decide. And August was most fair, most open-minded, but he knows what he wants. He knows what he needs for the group. So he would have to take the credit.
Nowadays, the band has been together so long. We've been blessed with having the same band, more or less, since 1979. So consequently, when you work that long with the same bunch of cats, you begin to think alike. Mm-hmm. So that when we do go out with a new theme, such as the leisure theme, you can turn to your keyboard player. You could turn to him and say, listen, we're doing a leisure tour thing. You got anything that might fit with this kind of a theme? And you can rely on him because you know you've lived together since '79. So therefore, it's not as difficult now. It's very easy now, as a matter of fact, to dictate law, so to speak.
So everybody goes out and buys their own clothes? Is that sort of the way it is? Or is
No, it's designed. It's
Yeah.
designed by a tailor by the name of John Ryle, who works out of New York, as a matter of fact.
Good man.
And,
good man. 80 years old, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 84.
Yes. And the clothes are designed by Adriana Kagi. Yeah, she designed the look, and she takes it to the tailor, and the tailor makes it up. Now, if we want to supplement that,
We'll go out and
get our own personal stuff
but-
because you've been on the road 8 months. You know, some of this
Right.
stuff gets pretty funky.
Right.
So you do have to supplement.
Yeah,
every
maybe
once
for
in
a
while.
certain number, we may have an idea, which is a costume that's very easy to get at any 5 and 10 cent store. But you know, one thing that's interested me that when you were talking about people being false, trying to be glamour, and they're really not glamorous, is when you see these award shows like the Grammys or the Oscars.
I never watched them.
Oh, okay. Well, I've heard of them. And I have watched a little bit of them. And when you see these people, they hire the greatest designers in California
yes.
or in the world, whatever, to make them these expensive outfits. And they look awful in them. I mean, they're not really glamorous, so they try to get that look of glamour. And normally you can bet in fact, the Oscar for this year, just watch the fashions. If you can just get next to it to watch the fashions, and you'll see that most of these people look awful in these expensive dresses.
You see,
now, why is that?
This is true. You see, there are some artists that have great ability, more ability as vocalists than perhaps Coati Mundi and I will ever achieve. Let's take, for instance, Sheena Easton. In my opinion, a marvelous singer. Someone came along and said, we're going to change your image. And because they felt she needed a glamour, a touch of glamour, because Madonna had done it this way. And so everyone, you know, Americans love to jump on bandwagons. So they said, Sheena, you got a beautiful face. You can be Madonna. You can be sexy. You can be this. So they went about transmogrifying this lovely lady and made a mockery of the integrity that she did have. This is one example, see? And this is why
Good example,
It's a
too.
good example, but this is why I'm hard-pressed when you say, who is it out there now that exemplify? I think Run DMC exemplifies glamour because it's so real. It's them. You know, when you see them out at night, that's them. There's no pretense.
To me, they're more glamorous than a Sheena. What's her name?
Easton.
Easton.
This is true. Run DMC reeks of glamour because they're real. There's no falseness there, you see. To this day, in my opinion, Mick Jagger reeks of glamour.
Yes.
Because he's real. That's him.
Right.
He's never been duped into believing he should be something else. Even in his down period, no one came along and said, Mick, you need a new thing. Cut your hair.
Put on some polish. Put
a Mohican up your hair.
Right. Put a ring in.
You know, whatever. And it wouldn't be Mick Jagger, would it?
Right.
You
He's
see?
cool. He's all right.
Glamour is what the heart dictates. That's what glamour is.
There's another guy that has no glamour. What's his name? David, out in California. David Lee.
Oh,
Sloth.
David Lee Rothfeld.
Raphael. That guy's the worst. It's awful, that guy. Oh.
So it all has to do with honesty.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that's what we're about, honesty. So when
as honest as the day is long.
that's
It's very
right.
obvious in sitting here and talking to you, which is a pleasure, I might add, that you both have a tremendous sense of humor.
Without a sense of humor, may I say this for all my constituents out there in TV land, without a sense of humor, life is meaningless. The reason why I personally developed a sense of humor was it was a matter of survival. Growing up in the Bronx, if you didn't have a sense of humor, you'd be dead. And a lot of the people that I grew up with are just that. They're either dead or they're still pumping gas at gas stations up there because they didn't look at life and say, hey, this is funny. They got too serious about it. And it's a way of protecting yourself, the inner self. It's a way of protecting yourself against ulcers and against headaches and against heart attacks. It's by laughing at the world and at yourself.
We're all gonna die, so we might as well laugh dying. Or laughing die.
Die and laugh.
Laugh it and die.
You can't take it with you.
Is your sense of humor also important
Gold.
to your
How do you say it?
style?
Yes, yes. Wherever I go, if I go to eat at Café des Artistes, or I go to any McDonald's, or if I go to any posh restaurant, I walk in and people laugh at me
J.S. Van Damme.
because they think this is funny. They don't see it every day. You know, they laugh at the hat and they may giggle. And this amuses me because it shows me their limitations, not mine. And so therefore, you must approach your attire with a sense of humor. Because if you take it too seriously, well, then it's going to show. Especially, once again, I connect it with the way you are. I'm not saying that everybody should dress with a sense of humor. But if your nature is one of lackadaisical approach to life, then your clothing should be the same. And yes, I do. I personally dress with a great sense of humor. And this man here makes my sense of humor seem droll because he's over the top.
Well, yeah. But, but I'll tell you, that's the trouble I have. I live in Spanish Harlem, and
That's your problem.
Yeah, that's a good problem. But rents are cheaper. Anyway, when I walk the streets, right, all the kids are laughing at me. And if I don't have that sense of humor, then I'll be in world trouble, especially during the winter, because they'd be throwing snowballs at me and things like that. And so, but I say to myself, all right, these kids are laughing at me. These kids are throwing snowballs at me. But at least I brought something into their lives. Because at the end of the night, they go home to their moms and dads say, we saw this weird man dressed this way. We threw him a snowball. And they all laugh while they're having dinner or whatever. Well, Spanish Harlem don't have what, pigeon?
Pigeon feet.
Yeah, right. So while they're having their dinner, they're talking about me and they're laughing up a storm. So I bring a little bit of something into their lives. But if I didn't have that sense of humor, I would stay in my apartment all day and all night and just cry. But I have a sense of humor, so I won't do that. I'll go out on the streets. I don't care if they laugh at me. I don't care if I get snowballs thrown at me. I don't care if they won't hold the elevator door for me.
What people fail to realize is that everything is style. Even the guy
who has no style. That is a style.
That is style.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
It's true.
Because I told that to somebody once and they didn't believe me.
That's swear to God. You look at anybody and it's style. That's a style. Even the guy who doesn't, it's a style.
Thing is, some people
and it
don't
works
realize
on some
that.
people. It works. I mean, there are. I'm trying to think of that fellow, the folk singer that I like so much.
John Den?
The guy who doesn't dress. I mean,
Bob Dylan's.
Not Bob Dylan. Well, anyway, he was in that group that had the long name in the college days.
Peter Paul and Larry.
Peter Paul, Mary, the Great Harmonies.
Neil Young and
Crosby,
Simon.
Stills, right. Who's the guy who went out on his own? Neil Young.
Yeah, Neil Young.
In fact,
right.
when you see Neil Young, there's no accent toward clothing. But my God, whatever he's wearing is perfect for the songs. It's like, same thing with Bruce Springsteen. There's no affectation there. Bruce Springsteen dresses the way his music sounds. That's him. To me, there's no pretense. To me, it's honesty. And it goes back once again to honesty.
But you see, that becomes style and fashion because he wears like the bandana, right?
And
then you go to his concerts and they're selling Bruce Springsteen's bandanas.
That's correct.
Everything becomes fashion.
Everything is fashion.
His T-shirts with the cut
Everything.
off muscle
The whole world
T-shirts.
is fashion. Everything.
It's amazing. Just like Don Johnson, Miami Vice.
Yeah.
He doesn't wear any socks. People don't realize that when the Miami Vice first began, it didn't have the kind of budget. They couldn't afford to give him socks.
Exactly.
But that became fashion.
That's it.
That became fashion.
That's
the fact that he wasn't wearing any socks became fashion.
Yeah.
Though it was an economic, because of economics, they didn't have
That's
money
right.
for the socks.
The same thing happened in the 50s. Marlon Brando was in a film. He took off his shirt, and he had no T-shirt on. Do you know the T-shirt sales dropped by 50%? Because Brando was such a box office attraction. The kids, the people that emulated, they said, wow, no T-shirt. There's no sense of T-shirts.
And it was just hot under the lights. That was the only reason he didn't wear a T-shirt, because it was hot, because he had to wear that jacket, which was hot.
It's called serendipity. But all is fashion, and fashion is all.
I think it's real interesting, and listening to you guys now for the last bit, another thing that you've made very apparent to me is everybody that you've talked about, not only in their music but in their look, including you guys, and especially you guys, are very much the individual. And I think maybe that's what makes good fashion.
I think you've brought up a very good point in speaking of the individual. I think, I know that I respect the individual. All my life I've respected the individual, the one that has walked contrary to the given current, or against the given current. It's harder and harder these days to be an individual, because of the pressures. Let us speak for a moment of the rock and roll world. The pressures of the execs and the pressures of the DJs and the pressures of the powers to be make it harder and harder for the individual to stand up tall and say, damn it, I must do it my way. He's either considered to be hard-headed or stubborn or an idiot. But I think my hat will always go off.
Whoa, it's a first, ladies and gentlemen.
To the individual, the man who does it, or woman, excuse me, who does it against all odds and still comes out on top. And there are many of them. There are many of them. And thank God for them, because they're the ones that keep me going. They're the ones that motivate and inspire me, the individuals.
I just want to say also that if there's any manufacturers out there that feel that they can distribute our clothes, that feel they can capitalize on our style and want to mass produce our clothes, please contact us. We are available.
Okay, we'll keep that plea in. Let's talk about, I'd like to get some comments from you guys on some different eras.
Yes.
If you don't mind.
Okay, can I just say something to Chris Wheat? If you can hear us, can you call William Morris and ask for Bruce Dubin?
Oh, God.
Tell him that we're running late. Ask for Bruce Dubin. Tell him we're running late and that we still want to see him today.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, he can hear you.
God bless you.
Okay, thank you.
May you have
Thank
black
you.
children.
Let's start with Motown.
Motown.
Is that a curse or a blessing?
That's a blessing. Man.
Oh, okay.
Now, when you speak of Motown and the influence of Motown, do you mean musically or just
Let's talk about
fashion-wise?
their style and fashion.
Oh.
Those early Motowns.
Marvelous. Fantastic.
That's great.
The Motown era will always be dear to me, of course, because I came to it as an adolescent, and also because of its longevity, because of the fact that it stayed. You know, it was important for long periods of time. They had a stable of great artists and great ideas. And the way they married, once again, the way they married the sound and the look was brilliant. It was brilliant. It was brilliant for the kids growing up to see it. It was always something like the glamour of it was always there. The approach was always there, and they felt that an artist should look like an artist, that an artist should be on a pedestal.
They were pioneers. That was
pioneers,
the greatest thing.
yeah.
They were
Yeah.
pioneers. I mean,
There was an attention to detail.
right. It's that's what made this country great. Talking about the United States of America is that we had the pioneer spirit from the very beginning, and we lost that now. And Motown was part of that pioneer spirit, not only in terms of fashions, but just generally. They would have an artist for years and years, albums and albums. Stick with the artist, develop the artist, pioneer. And we lack that now in terms of the music industry and I guess in general industries. But that's why I would always have respect for Motown and what they did. Though I'm sure there were problems that some artists that were on Motown might
Oh, sure.
acknowledge. But generally, a very important Motown.
Any particular Motown artist that you can remember as just knocking you out as far as the way they looked?
Smokey Robinson.
Yeah, I was going to say Smokey.
Smokey
Smokey
Robinson,
Robinson
the
just is so
Miracles.
suave
Right,
and so
right. And good dancer. Although the
Yeah.
Miracles are great dancers.
yeah, sexy and just right on target. Smokey Robinson was definitely one of my favorites.
Right.
What about that early '60s folk period? Does that say anything to you about style and fashion?
Said a lot to me, the early 60s and the folk period was important to me because it showed a marriage of political identity, of thought consciousness, and music. You know, it was as a child coming to that, I realized music doesn't have to be entirely frivolous. It doesn't have to be just for dancing. It doesn't have to be just for listening. It can be thought-provoking. And the style of it was, of course, hand in hand with the hippie period. So it was very important. Believe it or not, I was caught up in that era when I was a teenager. I wore the earrings and my hair very long and the trinkets. Yeah, it's amazing. I destroyed all the photographs of that period, but it was a period of my life.
You should have said, because there might be some photographs out there. Somebody might want to decide to blackmail you.
No one would do that.
Oh.
But so the fashion of that folk period was very important. I think it was hand in hand. I think it was extremely important to the kids because it was a way of them showing face value that they belonged to that group of rebels. And unlike today, they were not rebels without a cause. They were rebels with great causes. And the look went hand in hand. You couldn't divorce the look
It was a look.
Yeah, you couldn't divorce the look from the thought.
There was
if you
a
know what
look.
I mean. The folk singers, they all sort of had that same
They had that
stern,
look. They had that
rebellious look at me.
Incredible.
I'm an outsider. I'm an individualist, and I'm proud of it. The long
Look
hair,
at me. I
the
got a
flowing
whole
garments.
T-shirt.
Yeah,
I got,
it was great.
I got faded out jeans.
It was great.